Okay, and we are live for our first live podcast. A big thank you goes out to Mr. Kevin Mullally for making that original tune for the start of the show. And today I'm joined by, for the third time, Mr. Gerard Browne from Irish Football Fan TV. How are you doing, Gerard?
The hat trick. How are things, Morris?
Not too bad. Pity we can't get a few more hat tricks, but they're coming anyway. How's things with you?
Not too bad, keeping well. I think everyone in general now is probably just feeling a bit of a buzz. Summer's here. Things are opening up. Pubs, hospitality is opening up. A bit more life, buzz around the place. I'm back in the west of Ireland. We haven't got to touch the good weather here yet, but hopefully it's coming our way over the weekend.
Are you back in Roscommon at the moment?
Back in Roscommon for the moment. Busy few days with training and football matches starting back up. So it's all systems go. Never mind the Euros. Roscommon Junior B League is back tomorrow.
Brilliant. Shout out to Roscommon Junior B.
Yeah.
So how's things? What have you been up to with the channel? I seen you were at a few League of Ireland games.
Yeah, I've been keeping busy since we're last talking to you. That was back at the end of March, I suppose. By that stage, the League of Ireland season was only into its second or third week, and it's kind of really taken off now at this stage. Obviously, they've just taken their mid-season break over the last kind of couple of weeks. Look, we could question maybe why did they take it before the Euros or not, but it's out of the way with now anyway, and it's all kind of systems go between now and the end of the season. Things are shaping up quite nice. I thought a couple of weeks ago I was at the game in Richmond Park when Denny Mandreo got the winner for Shamrock Rovers in injury time. That put them 5 points ahead of St. Pat's, I think 6 points ahead of Sligo. And I just thought it was going to be one-way traffic there for the rest of the season. But credit to Sligo, they've gone an excellent run since then, including beating Shamrock Rovers and Tala. Obviously, Rovers have dropped a couple of points. So we have a very interesting title race, fingers crossed, on our hands. Teams like Dundalk have pulled a couple of results back. Derry is starting to find new form under their new manager. Bows are getting back to their old selves. So even European places could hot up. And I haven't even mentioned Drogheda, who have been absolutely fantastic this season. And we've obviously got the four sides in Europe as well next month between Shamrock Rovers, Dundalk, Bohemians and Sligo. So yeah, plenty to look forward to and the League of Ireland. And it's also great as well, after being a lot of soulless stadiums for the last 12 months, finally there'll be fans back at games this weekend. Paul is covering Shamrock Rovers. First is Finn Harps tomorrow evening at Tallaght Stadium. I'm going to be at Bishopsgate on Saturday for Longford versus St. Pat's.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see the crowd back in when you're there. What's the experience been like lately without the crowd and just kind of the media people there? Is it weird?
It's not great. Sometimes if it's a good game, it's grand because you're so absorbed and caught up in the game, and you can kind of keep the concentration levels. Because sometimes you can kind of maybe drift out of matches when there's no one there, but the crowd is always a great kind of thing to suck you back in. There have been a couple of games I've been at where maybe with 20 minutes, half an hour to go, the result isn't in doubt, and it's hard to kind of keep interest as well. In that case, credit to the likes of the club officials who are fortunate there, subs and everything else, that they try and create as much noise. Like there does be, I suppose we're fortunate we're in the game, and because we're in the media, there's always a couple of people around us, fellow journalists and reporters covering matches. So it's not too bad, but there's no two ways about it. I know it's only going to be 200 people at Bishopsgate on Saturday evening, but I genuinely can't wait for it. It's going to create an extra buzz, an extra feel, an extra bit of life to it. The only, from a selfish point of view, the only annoying thing about it is them early kickoffs, so 6 o'clock on a Saturday, 5:45 on a Friday. They're going to be gone now because you're going to have to accommodate fans. It was, just from a selfish point of view, it was nice to go to a game and you still have your Saturday night yourself. That's gone, but you look, it's part and parcel when you're in that industry. You have to put up with it.
Absolutely. And we're going to touch on the two Ireland games, obviously. Like it couldn't have really gotten any worse since we were last talking, and you said to me that, if we didn't beat Andorra, like, he had to go. Like, we did beat Andorra. We went behind, but I didn't even, I can be critical of the manager sometimes, but I was thinking to myself, there's absolutely no way in hell like we're going to lose this game.
No, I think like sure, like I know we can say, oh, we fall behind and we should win this game comfortably, but you do see freak instances like that sometimes where minnows do get a goal back to equalise or take the lead or something like that. I remember, you'll probably remember more because you're that bit older, but remember we played Andorra mixed first time in charge. They actually equalised that evening in Lansdowne Road.
Yeah.
So these freak things kind of happen. But the most impressive thing was the character was shown by the players, because I know there was still a long time left, but like, I'm not going to lie, as a fan, I've had flashbacks back to March and Rodriguez's goal against us in the Aviva. But fair play to the players to show the good bit of character and ball, and it was great to see a young player like Troy Power really step up, get his couple of goals. Jason Knight, who's been very impressive since he came into the team back in the autumn of last year, and Darrell Horgan as well. And in the end, like, if someone told you before the game, we're going to win this game 4-1, you're kind of thinking, well, that's good. It's a victory. It's a couple of goals. And it's probably what we should be beating someone by. Even as a reference, that time under Mick McCarthy, we played Andorra, like, we didn't know it was better than. I think we only bet them by 2 or 3 goals. We played them under Trapp's time as well, 2-0 over there, 3-1 home. Ireland don't hammer teams regardless of what standard they're at. Like, so just to get a win, I think was good. It doesn't kind of do much because it's a game we should be kind of winning. But I thought Tuesday night, which we'll probably get on to, I thought there was encouragement from there. A decent enough performance against a team that will be going to the European Championships.
Yeah, in the Andorra game, when you were saying about kind of we just find a way to get over the line, but that's kind of historically what Ireland do.
Yeah.
We don't really go out and trash teams. So it was nice to see. What's your opinion on Parrott? Obviously, he's had a rough season at club level from being loaned out, and then he ended up going to Millwall. That didn't really work out. Went to Ipswich, didn't get a lot of game time, but he looked like someone that had a point to prove the other night.
Yeah, I think he ended up getting a good bit more game time at Ipswich than he did in Millwall. I think maybe he had more local injuries, and he got them couple of goals where he didn't get in Millwall. Look, I think overall this season's going to stand to him. I think it was a great learning curve. I think it was his first season playing adult football. He started the season as an 18-year-old. He was still a teenager. So look, I think anyone who's expecting he was going to go to Millwall and rip up the championship and even get double-digit goals, I think was living in fairyland, and possibly maybe to an extent in League One. I just seen stuff on social media from Ipswich pages. They actually were quite happy with his performances and his work rate. And like, look, Ipswich didn't have a good season by their own standards. Missing out on the League One playoffs is not acceptable for a club of their stashes. So yeah, it was a bit of a frustrating season, but I think it's going to stand. I think, he still probably walked away playing between something like 20 to 30 games this season at 18, 19 years of age. There's not too many Irish players in the last 5 or 10 years that can say that. It's good to see him get off the mark on Tuesday. I thought he took his first goal really, really well. Yeah, he got a bit of fortune second goal, but you'll take that. And I think Tuesday night as well, I still thought he actually played quite well, because we didn't really create that much chance the first half. We set quite deep. He won a lot of fouls. He got fouled 3 or 4 times for free kicks, which clearly shows that, like, the Hungarians were obviously worried about him, that they couldn't kind of do anything with him. I was surprised he was taken off as early as he did. Maybe Stephen just felt that he's still a kid. You still need to mind these scenarios and situations, and he had played the full 90 on Thursday. But no, he's definitely one player for me who can come away from these 2 games with his head held high. Don't know if he's really going to have much of a future at Spurs, but in terms of if he's trying to put himself in the shop window for potential clubs, he did himself no harm over the last week.
Do you think there's any other honourable mentions from that game that you want to give a shout out to?
To the Hungary or Andorra match?
To the Andorra match.
No, it's not really kind of much. It's one of them, to be brutally honest. I was in work at the time, and I was fortunate with my work that I was able to watch the game as well, but I only kind of maybe didn't have as much of an eye on it as I would have had Tuesday gone by. But obviously Jason Knight, I think, to get his first goal, as I touched on, like, he's been a breakthrough player since he came in the Nations League last autumn. Hasn't really let the side down. It's come off the back in some ways as well to a frustrating season, more so just because Derby were so poor this season. I think he still can kind of walk away with his head held high. It was good to see him kind of get a goal as well, and Darrell Horgan as well, who's a player that some people might look at and think, like, why are we playing someone who's bottom half Championship League One standard over the last kind of couple of seasons? But he always brings something to the party when he comes on. Maybe didn't have much of an impact Tuesday night, but in general he always brings some impact to a game when he comes on. It was good to see him get a goal as well the other night.
I think he's a severely underrated player, and he could put a serious ball into the box as well. Like, I think he should be definitely factoring into starting 11s from here on in.
100%. I think Dan McDonald even had a piece in the Independent. I just kind of seen it on Twitter. I haven't got around to kind of reading it, but I think we need to kind of maybe overlook the point of view. Just say if he ends up staying with Wickham and ends up playing in League One. But again, it's one of those, like, when you look at it, you kind of think, so when he plays like that with Ireland, and he still had an up and down kind of season with Wickham, but I do think he is good enough to play the Championship standard. If he can get a move there, get much more regular football, as you say, like, his contribution to Ireland warrants that he's definitely going to be thereabouts in terms of, if he's not going to start, being a sub to bring on anyway.
Touching on the Hungary game, then it was the first time that I, just my own personal opinion, took kind of pride in what I seen, because I thought it was real kind of old school and gritty performance. And a player we touched on last time, we were talking about him because he was having such a rough time, Duffy, but he came in and he played absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, he was fantastic. He got the RT man of the match. Myself and Paul were doing the player ratings, so no, he didn't get our man of the match, but again, we gave him high rate. And I think everyone in general who's an Ireland football fan, I think, was just delighted, because he's had an awful time over the last couple of months, football and personal reasons, with the disappointments on and off the pitch. So I was glad to see that he can finally put what's been a horrible season behind him. It ended on a high note. Look, it didn't work out for Celtic. He became the scapegoat of what was a disastrous season for that club.
The writing was on the wall before he joined there.
Yeah, it kind of like it was, as you said there, and like, he just then kind of became a target because he was a high profile signing, big wages coming from the Premier League. I think maybe Rangers fans also used him as a good stick as well, because of he's very public about being a Celtic fan. But I thought he was a very, very encouraging performance, and I thought that the back three in general, John Egan as well, I know he got a couple of game time towards the end of the season with Sheffield United coming from injury, but thought he was excellent, and so unfortunate not to score. And Darragh O'Shea, just every time he just takes to the pitch, he just impressed. Like, he just looks so comfortable for a fella of his age. He just looks so mature at this level, looks really, really good. I think he's a good chance of, look, I think if he ends up staying at West Brom and playing the Championship, it's still not the end of the world at his stage in his career, but he's definitely given himself a good chance of getting the Premier League move in the summer, I think. But yeah, I agree with you. I thought, even though, Kelleher had to make 3 or 4 good saves in the second half, with a bit more luck and a little bit more composure in front, we could have kind of nicked it. Like, Hungary, yeah, they're going to the Euros, but given the group they're in, I don't expect them to kind of do much. But I think there definitely was positives to take away from that performance and going forward. And I think you could definitely kind of tell that was the first time in the training camp Stephen Kenny's had time with the players. He hasn't just had 2 or 3 days in the training ground and they're straight into an away game. And more often than not, all of these away matches, like it was Sofia, it was Bratislava, it was Belgrade, they all seem to be long trips for some reason. Good bit of time to work on them, and hopefully now the positives can kind of be taken from this. Only slight problem is 3 months, hard to carry momentum, and it's Portugal away. There still is a fear that you could get a bad beating there. And not that we made savage amount of progress over these 2 games, but there was some progress made. It still will be feeling up back to square one again. I hope I'm wrong now in saying that.
Even with losing to Portugal.
Yeah, well, I think it's probably going to be the manner in which we probably lose Portugal. I was just saying to one of the lads there the other day, like, you look at the remaining fixtures, and just say if we can kind of kick on and we can see more performances like we did against reasonable opposition like Hungary the other night, it's not beyond the realms possibility we could beat Serbia at home. We still should be aiming for me to beat Luxembourg away and take maximum points off Azerbaijan. Now, that's far from a foregone conclusion, as we know what happened in March. But we can end the campaign at least in double digits points, ideally maybe 12, but even if we end up with 10, protect our seeding going forward for Euro 2024. That still is a tournament, I think, with the age of this team, with the number of teams that can qualify for that tournament. I still think that is a realistic possibility for Ireland to make.
What about the 2 goalkeepers? That's a selection headache and a half, isn't it? It's fantastic to see.
It's fantastic in one way. Obviously, it's great just to see from their own kind of point of views, and it's also as well, you look at the clubs that they're at. Like, I know Bazunu was on loan in Man City and could be loaned again, but he's still at that club. And Kelleher looks like he's definitely going to nail himself on as Liverpool's number 2. If he doesn't get a move in the summer, that's something he might have to look at. It's just worrying that for years we were talking about the right back position. Now we're talking about goalkeeping. Why can't we have options in the attacking positions? But no, I thought well, first and foremost, Bazunu, just the nature of the game, there wasn't much to do in the first half, but when he was called upon, he made a very, very good save. But Kelleher, I just thought, was excellent in the second half. Some of his saves were really, really good, because probably was a little bit of pressure on, because Bazunu had come in, took advantage of him and Randolph being injured, and looked like he was going to be going forward that number 1 spot. But like, Kelleher's played in the Premier League and has very rarely put a foot wrong. He's played in Champions League games. He's done okay. He's working behind one of the best goalkeepers in the world in Alisson, and he shows his quality again the night. Like, it is a question mark. You could kind of say, obviously I'm going to be a bit biased because I'm a Liverpool fan and obviously I'm a massive Ireland fan, so I want to see Irish players there. I would like to kind of see him stay, but I do realise he's now 22, 23 years of age. Like, he's good enough for me to be a number one goalkeeper in the Premier League for another club. For someone like a Burnley, someone like a Newcastle, Crystal Palace, someone like that. Like, and if they were to come in and the offer seemed right for him, it'd be hard for him not to turn down. But again, you look at it as well, Alisson's injury record, if Liverpool get on cup runs, would he still be happy enough to work behind Alisson and get his 10 to 15 games next season and still feel his time is on his side? It's a hard one still to know for him.
Yeah, I think I can imagine him staying maybe for another year anyway. He's going to learn so much from Klopp and just being there in general anyway at a massive club.
He might also learn from Alisson how to score headers from corners too.
There's a comment here. Should Kelleher stay out or go on loan?
Yeah, just kind of pretty much what I was kind of saying there. If I was obviously let my Irish and Liverpool bias in this kick in, I'd like to see him stay, but that's just because I like to see an Irish player at Liverpool. And like I said, there's still going to be good advantages from being number 2 at Liverpool. There's still going to be opportunities and working under Alisson and Klopp as well. But I do think maybe at this stage now of his career, 22, 23, like I said, if a good offer comes in and he feels is right, I think like he should be knocking on Klopp's door saying like, right, what are my serious long-term opportunities here? Because otherwise, I think I'm going to take this. I have to look after myself. And I also have to realise as well, hey, there's a 19, 20-year-old kid behind me in Ireland who's going to be pushing me hard. So I need every advantage I need to get that number 1 spot.
Yeah, and I think Kenny, I don't know if he had made his mind up, but for Bazunu to start 4 in a row, you were thinking, okay, he's kind of made his decision. But then when Kelleher came on and played so well, it's a decision I wouldn't like to be making anyway at the moment.
No, and we also have to factor in as well that like it's not because of bad form or mistakes or anything. It's like Darren Randolph just hasn't played the last couple of games just because he's injured.
Yes.
Who's to say he isn't going to like get back full fitness? Realistically speaking, probably be looking at a move in the summer if he really wants to keep going for Ireland. But if he gets good form again, he's someone you can rely on. He's not totally out of the shop window now. You would still feel he probably is slightly down to number 3 in that pecking order, but there's not really much between the 3 of them if it's a case of Randolph and get himself back fit and get himself first team football again. Because as I said, I can't really remember too many times he's let Ireland down in the past.
And going forward, then would you play Shane Duffy?
It's again, it's probably goes back to similar kind of points we're kind of saying there. Like again, he's never really kind of let us down.
Yeah.
In the past, probably them November internationals, you could say he was quite poor, but they were only a friendly game against England, 2 Nations League matches, so nothing major at stake. That playoff game against Slovakia, he was man of the match as well. He's proven before in the past. I still think he's a very, very good defender. I wouldn't write him off just because of one bad season. Age is still reasonably on his side. He's only just gone 29, so you'd still think there's another 4 or 5 years of international football all going well, form-wise, injury-wise, and everything else like that. If you can get the right move in the summer, get confident, get kind of good back about, feel a good factor about himself, just in a personal sense, everything else like that. Absolutely, I think he's definitely got every chance. Again, you might say he might be a little bit out of position, out of favour now because of Egan and Darragh O'Shea. But if Kenny sticks with
the 3,
say a back 5, and just say for instance like Mark Doherty continues to kind of have a poor season like he had this year, you can put Coleman in there and he could slot in and continue in that back 3 because it worked well the other night himself, Egan and O'Shea, and as I said, against reasonable opposition too.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to move on now and we're going to talk a little bit about the European Championships, and we're just going to have a look through the groups just for the crack really and see who we think the top 2 would be from these groups. It doesn't have to be in order. Now I know there's going to be the 4 best third places will also go through, but we're not going to really get into that. But here's the first one anyway: Italy, Switzerland, Turkey, and Wales.
Straight away, I'd be confident in naming my top 2 from here, and I think Italy and Turkey for me. I think Wales and Switzerland, whether one of them gets the best third place spot or not, I'm not too sure. That would probably depend on that game on Saturday. I think whoever wins that game obviously gives themselves a good chance. If they happen to win it by a couple of goals, boosts their goal difference. If it ends up being a draw, then the 2 of them will really need a result. Ideally, they'd be targeting Turkey. Italy, I don't want to call them a dark horse because they're one of the giants of European football. I know they weren't at the World Cup the last time, but they are a team that I think they could do really, really well. Now, again, you're on about like we don't know what the third place teams, and because of that, it's hard to even map out the knockout stage routes because of
we're not even going to do that.
So it was well off to waste the group stages for that. But if things go right that kind of way, I think they could go deep in this competition. Like they were fantastic in qualifying. Mancini's got the buzz back again. There's no two ways about it. There would have been a post-mortem after they failed to qualify for the World Cup in Russia a couple of years ago. Going about their business quite nicely. Like I say, a couple of good players as well, even if their centre back, it's combined age of 70, but plenty of experience there. Never write them off. And Turkey as well, another team quite solid defensively at the back. Obviously, Suçu at Leicester as well would be a big player for them. And like they bet the Netherlands in qualifying for the World Cup there recently enough. There seems to be a team that everyone kind of seems to be talking up. So I think that they would definitely take at least 4 points from Wales and Switzerland. I think that could be enough to carry them into second spot. Who knows? They could even pull a result tomorrow, but I think Italy at home will win that game and will win the group.
Yeah, the home factor is huge in these games as well. But I reckon that's going to be a very tight group maybe for second place between those three teams, Switzerland, Turkey and Wales. You'd expect Italy to top it, but nothing you can't take that for granted at the same time.
No, I suppose with Wales as well, like they're a team obviously we know quite well. I just don't think they're the same team as they were 5 years and got semi-final. You know, Gareth Bale's after coming back from winning the Champions League with Real Madrid and was in very, very good form that season. Aaron Ramsey was in very, very good form at Arsenal. They've had injuries disrupted seasons. Like Joe Allen was after coming back for a strong end of the season with Liverpool. I think he even could be out now with injury. Hal Robson-Kanu scored a couple of crucial goals in that tournament. He's not there. Neil Taylor's not there. Ashley Williams was a rock at the back for them. He's not there. I know they have the lad there from Spurs, Roden, come in. Like Tom Lawrence there as well. Harry Wilson, obviously, could be a crucial player then because we know how dangerous he can be from set pieces and had a good season with Cardiff. But the Ryan Giggs situation, I don't think that would be too much of a bother because Rob Page has been there since last November, so I think they're well kind of settled in with him in that head coach kind of role. But like they didn't overly impress me in the two Nations League matches against Ireland. Did just enough to beat us in Cardiff. I thought if Ireland maybe weren't a little bit mentally and physically fatigued from losing the playoff against Slovakia a few days before that, I think we could have actually beaten them that day. So I just don't think they'll they might sneak out of the group, but I don't think they'll emulate their achievements of 4 years ago.
Yeah, I think the whole
5 years ago, even, I should say.
Yeah, the manager situation with obviously what's going on there would probably just be an unwelcome distraction anyway. So I think they'd probably be better off without him.
Yeah.
Moving on to Group B: Belgium, Denmark, Finland, and Russia.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I think for Belgium, for me, a bit like Croatia at the last World Cup, I think their clash is having a golden generation. I think they're now on their last legs. I think this is their last chance for me if they're going to do anything. They've been okay without really overly exerting themselves in major tournaments. I think they've done well at the last World Cup. Obviously, that was a big statement from beating Brazil, but I thought they went out quite tamely against France in the semi-final. They could have given that a little bit more of a go. The last Euros, after a shaky start losing to Italy, they then battered us, and they actually were pretty impressive the next kind of couple of games. And that tournament opened up for them to get to the final. And then you could say they arguably bottled it, like losing to Wales, an underdog in the quarterfinal. So they really do kind of need to kind of step up. There would be slight concerns, like if Eden Hazard is not the same player he was a couple of years ago, although Lukaku was coming off the back of a good club season. He was phenomenal with them at the World Cup a couple of years ago. Defensively at the back, I would be a little bit concerned just because of their age and stuff like that. I think they'll definitely have enough to top this group, but I'm not too sure about whether they can go all the way. I think they're capable of a good tournament. Like I said, I think because the players know themselves, it's pretty much now or never. I would kind of feel for them.
That's exactly what I was going to say, because people have been hyping them up for the last 3-4 tournaments.
Yeah, so I think probably since the 2014 World Cup, like so. As for the other teams in that group, Finland, again, they're maiden tournament. Another team we placed in the Nations League. They're okay. They're kind of solid enough. Obviously, a bit like with this club team Norwich, they'll probably heavily rely on Pukki, but I think he's carrying injury doubts coming into this as well. So it's kind of hard to see them do much. Russia obviously done very well at the last World Cup, but how much of that was a home factor, we don't really know. I think 2 of their games are going to be in Petersburg as well.
See, that's another thing. That's a massive thing as well.
And I think as well, this is another reason, without jumping too far ahead, why I think this team could be a dark horse is Denmark. All 3 group games in Copenhagen. I think they're building really nicely. I think We obviously, again, we seem to know a lot about them because they were in the
Yeah.
last qualifying campaign. I know maybe the likes of Ericsson isn't quite the same player he was, but I think of someone like Christensen at Chelsea who had a very good season. He's come back into fitness now and got match sharpness under his belt, building nicely. We're in very, very good form in the March internationals, like the 3 group games at home. You know, the dark horse. I think they could be a team with a bit of luck. That could be that team. That could be the Wales and Iceland at this Euros.
Yeah, so you would say it'll be Belgium then and Denmark from that group.
Belgium and Denmark for me. As for whether Russia for me will come third again, we'll be getting the calculators out at the end of the group whether it could be enough for them to get through or not.
The next one is Austria, Holland, Macedonia, and Ukraine.
Yeah, this is actually a group I would be confident enough. I think there would be definitely maybe only 2 teams coming out. But I think it's an even enough group, but I don't think there's any real standout team. I think the Dutch, obviously, they've gone on a drought since they got to that World Cup semi-final. It's their first major tournament since, and they were building quite nicely during the Nations League campaign when they got to the final, lost to Portugal. Koeman seemed to be kind of building things, but then he's kind of left. Virgil van Dijk is kind of injured. I'm just looking at their squad the other day. It's not that really, really good. It's like Donny van de Beek, which again we don't really actually kind of know how good he would have been.
I think he's injured. Yeah,
he's gone. Now again we don't know what he would have been like because he hadn't played much kind of club football. Frank de Boer is in there. His reputation doesn't speak too great at club level. Like I mentioned, they were on the receiving end of that shock result against Turkey last while. So I kind of feel that bounce factor that Koeman had built for them a couple of years ago is now kind of gone since he left. But like they still have the likes of Delish, Luke de Jong as well, Gini Wijnaldum. I just look at them. I don't see where many goals are going to come from. I think they'll have enough to get out of this group, but I don't think anyone will be fearing to come to knockout stages. And I think Ukraine could be the second place team from this one. I think Shevchenko, they've been building nicely the last kind of couple of years. They're up in League A in the Nations League. I think they actually finished above Portugal in qualifying, and actually Serbia in that group as well. So it wasn't an easy group to qualify. So they could definitely be a team to watch out for. Yarmolenko as well will be a player that we'll be quite familiar with from his time in West Ham. It was mad. I was actually just looking back at all the goals from Euro 2012 area, and he was still playing in that tournament. I didn't realize he's as old as he is. North Macedonia, they're the lowest seeded team in this tournament, but I don't think they're actually the worst team in it. I think the likes of Finland and Slovakia are probably worse than them. They're not going to be a pushover. Like they bet Germany recently, and even to beat Georgia to qualify, we know how dogged they can be. Just ask even the likes of Spain, who actually had to get a late goal to beat them. So I don't expect them maybe to do much in the tournament, but I think they could be competitive. I think they could maybe take a point off someone like an Austria, who, to be brutally honest, I don't really know much about, other than I know that they obviously have David Alaba as well. I can't even fully remember what they were like in qualifying. They weren't at the last World Cup. They were a major disappointment when they were talked up for Euro 2016. Didn't win a game, went out the group stage. I think they'll be looking at another group stage exit.
Yeah, I think everything there revolves around Alaba, really.
Yeah.
The next group now is very interesting. Croatia, Czech Republic, England, and Scotland.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because obviously the reward, if you even want to call it for the team that tops this group, is that you're probably going to be playing either one of Germany, France, or Portugal. So is that going to play in England's mind? I heard Gary Neville say on Sky Sports Football podcast today, I don't think it can. I don't think he'd be kind of going into a scenario and situation. I think maybe fair enough, a bit like they did in their last group game of the World Cup against Belgium. If they're already through, just rest kind of players, but obviously you still have intention to go out to win. So if they have 6 points by the time they play Czech Republic and they're already through, I can see Southgate resting players with the mindset of, if we don't get a result, it's not the end of the result, not the end of the world, but that won't be the mindset. I think like if they're going to go about the mindset, we want to win every game. And also the fact as well, I think what might play in their mind is if they top the group as well, it is a home against Wembley. So that has to be an extra incentive for them. And as someone kind of said, it's like a Euro 96 for them all over again, and even throwing the fact that Scotland's in the group as well. So it is very reminiscent of that. No, I think if England go about this in the right way, they'll top the group. They'll obviously have a friend in their mind for Croatia. I know they bet them in the Nations League game not long after that World Cup semi-final, but this is the first time they're properly playing them. Croatia are not the same team that they were in Russia a couple of summers ago. Their form has been poor. They've been well beaten in a lot of Nations League matches. Did just enough to qualify as well, but they always seem to kind of do that. Bit of an Asian kind of team. I think they'll brush aside them. I think they'll brush aside Scotland, even though it's a derby game. And then obviously it just depends what their mindset is come the Czech Republic match.
I can't see it being too easy for them. But like it depends on what England shows up. Like because if you look on paper, they have an absolutely fantastic squad, like one of the best squads going into the tournament. But for some reason, it doesn't all gel together, and there's a lot of criticism coming in already on the manager over the players that he's selected and potentially over the players he's going to start. Like people are on about. Will he start Rashford? Will he start Sterling? And the two of those guys are not in form. People are saying, well, maybe Sancho should be starting, or maybe someone else should be starting, Saka on the left wing, or something like that. He's got some big calls to make, and one of his biggest calls to make, I think, is in goals as well, because I wouldn't be confident as an England fan going into the tournament with Pickford behind the sticks.
The only problem is, would you be confident either with Johnson or Dean Henderson? Henderson didn't exactly have a good end to the season with Man United. Johnson had a very good season despite West Brom's relegation, but they don't have experience. So I think he definitely will go with Pickford. Another area of concern as well is their defence. Harry Maguire, I know he's divides opinion, but for me, he is their best centre back. I think there's no debate around that. I know he's back training today. He's unlikely to be fit for that Croatia match. I didn't see their game against Romania the other day, but by all accounts, Tyrone Mings was not good, and I don't really rate him that highly, to be honest. I think he had a very poor second half season at Aston Villa. John Stones struggled a little bit towards the end of the season, so it's hard to know. I think they probably might go with 5 at the back, James with the right back, and Kyle Walker tucking in there as well. I think Chilwell will get the nod to start over Shaw. I think he's just his end of the season with Chelsea was very impressive. And the Rashford and Sterling one is interesting because it's not even like as if Sterling has a good track record of performing in major tournaments of England. He was a disappointment at the Euros in France that time, and the last World Cup as well. He had a poor one as well. So, like you said, you have someone like Sancho coming in there off the back of a good season with Dortmund. Rashford as well, his form, but you wonder whether he gave maybe a slight benefit of doubt that he's done it before for England. But then you look at it and think Sancho plays the same size as him. So would that mean it's going to be Sterling that starts and Rashford that misses out? It's just kind of hard to know. And I kind of agree with you as well. Even the media are trying to make much of some of the players' off-field activities, like they're folding down his hair, Grealish and Rice in a darts competition. I just think that's a load of nonsense. I think same things probably went on in major tournaments a year gone by, but just because there wasn't social media to blow these things up. I think just let the lads enjoy themselves. They're going to have to go into hotels and restrict their movement anyway from Saturday or Sunday onwards. No, I think they'll definitely get out of the group. I don't think that's in any danger. But again, come the knockout stages, I don't think we'll be worrying about football coming home in July.
I don't think so either. And so you reckon England will go through? Who do you reckon? Croatia in second place then?
I think Croatia will still have enough to finish second, but I don't think that they will be again maybe a bit like the Dutch. I don't think any of the teams will fear them in the round of 16. Now it could work up quite nicely for them. Like if they end up finishing second, there's a good chance they could end up playing Sweden or Poland then in the round of 16. So they could still end up finding themselves in the quarterfinal. I still think they'll have enough to kind of get out the group. Czech Republic, I'm not really kind of sure where they are, to be 100% kind of brutally honest. Their Nations League campaign was up and down, but I think there was disputes there, wasn't there, with the FA and management and kind of stuff like that. And Scotland, I think will be probably, I think it's fair to kind of say, I think they kind of will be the team that most people down here will be kind of cheering on, because in fair play to them, I kind of found that in Euro 2016, where they're the only home nation that weren't there, a lot of their fans did kind of get behind us. I think they could have enough to get out of this group as one of the best third place teams. I think they could, if they could beat that first game against Czech Republic, is massive for them at home in Hampden. They bet them in a recent Nations League match as well. Like, and I look at their team, it's not that bad as well. Like, you've got players playing for a lot of top clubs in Arsenal: Kieran Tierney, Andy Robinson, Billy Gilmore. I know he didn't play much Chelsea season. Scott McTominay. Now, how do you accommodate Tierney and Robinson? Is going to be their theory. They're playing McTominay for some reason at centre back. That's a little bit of a strange one. Now, I think it's to accommodate to keep Tierney on the left side of midfield, and you've got John McGinn there, very good player, and McGregor at Celtic as well. Might struggle a little bit for goals up front, but although I think Che Adams still isn't the worst striker in the world, I'd still take him with Ireland. I'd put it that kind of way. So I think they could have enough to get third place in this group. And if they can kind of keep the scoring down, maybe against England, or nick a point against Croatia, could get them through as a third place team.
Yeah, I think they have some very dogged players there, so I can't see anyone really steamrolling them in this group, to be honest with you.
No.
They'll be well up for it.
Yeah, as I mentioned as well, actually, that I think that a couple of people in Ireland might take some as their team to follow in this tournament. They do also have former Ireland player involved in their management, Stephen Reid, so that probably would be something that might tip even more people in this island to get behind them.
And plus, they're playing England next Friday, so I think
Exactly.
everyone's going to be going for them. The next group is Poland, Slovakia, Spain, and Sweden.
Yeah, the group that we could have been in, and the group that there should be games in Dublin, but we won't get into that.
No.
Spain, without being the former glory of the team they were in the past, and they've also only just named 24 players as opposed to 26 because their manager
COVID
reckons they're only
issues.
going to need 17 to 18 players anyway. Obviously, no Sergio Ramos, but let's be honest, he's played very little football since Christmas, so it's no major surprise. Florent Torres came into a good bit of form with Man City towards the end of the season, so that might give him a little bit of hope. Thiago Silva had a good end to the season as well with Liverpool. So there are a couple of good signs from there. I know they've had COVID scares and tests and stuff like that, but I think they're all good and they're all kind of clear now. They're not the same team as they were for a while. They've kind of been gradually kind of going downhill since the 2012 Euros. Still think they'll have enough to top this group. As for second place, to be honest, I think it's probably a toss of coin between Sweden and Poland. I think Slovakia, as we know, they're not that actually good of a side. Like we should have beaten them that night. And I think even if you talk to Northern Ireland fans, they'll probably still have nightmares about their game against them. I think they literally could end up in this tournament pointless. So that I think it is the second. I can't remember if it's the second or third round game where Poland plays and Sweden play each other. I think that could be the decisive factor. I think Sweden have a better balance to their team, but Poland have probably got one of the most informed strikers in this tournament, in Robert Lewandowski. No, he hasn't got the best tournament record, but you can never rule out a team with him. And I know with a couple of COVID scares to give England a right good scare as well in that friendly or that World Cup qualifier back in March. So there won't be a pushover. Maybe just because of that, I might slightly edge towards them, as in I've probably seen them a little bit more than Sweden. And of course, Slashing has gone for Sweden as well. So
yeah, this is the last group is absolutely bonkers. France, Germany, Portugal, and Hungary.
Yeah, everyone calling this one the group of death. I don't really kind of get when I think all three of these teams are going to make it out. Like, so I think with the nature of a lot of third place, it just kind of takes away. I think like from watching Hungary the other night, look, fair play, they're there at the Euros, they took advantage of the Euros Nations League spot, but I don't see. I didn't see anything from the other night to suggest that they could cause any of these teams problems. The only thing is they do have 2 games at home, full houses, could create intimidating atmosphere. Obviously, if they were to take a result here, it might make things a little bit interesting and get that other team sweating a little bit. But I expect all the other 3 teams to beat them with a bit to spare, so the goal difference will be sound. And who's to know, the other 3 teams might all end up taking points off each other. France and Portugal probably are the 2 teams that most people are tipping for this tournament. And so for that reason, I think they would definitely kind of finish top 2. Germany, I think they've only actually named 2 strikers in their squad, which is really, now they're top heavy in midfield, but that's a bizarre one. And one of them is Timo Werner. I know he has a decent record with Germany, but losing to North Macedonia isn't encouraging. Jurki Löw's last kind of tournament, I just think he's overstayed his welcome at this stage. I think he probably should have really went after Euro 2016. Definitely should have went after they went out at the group stages the last World Cup. I think they'll get out of this group. I think they'll probably be the 3rd place team, and then we'll wait to see what the round of 16 draw throws up for them then.
Well, this is where we're going next anyway, from Jonathan O'Dwyer. Thanks, Jonathan. Who are you picking to win the Euros? You go ahead first, Gerard.
I'm going to stand by France for me, which I still think Portugal, and I still think there's going to be, just because I think it's going to be their last roll of the dice, and I think most of their players know it, I think Belgium will be close by too.
Yeah, I was actually going to pick Portugal to win it. I just had a sneaky suspicion, but
they've a better team than the team that won it 5 years ago, and they won the most recent Nations League 2 years ago as well, with a better team. So now they weren't vintage in their opening qualifying games in their campaign, but I still think you'd overlook them for the quality of the likes of Ronaldo, Bernardo Silva, Bruno Fernandes, Diego Jota. Looks like he's back in fitness again. I know he's had up and downs with Liverpool the last kind of couple of weeks. Like, you just look at that, they're, for me, 4 players that easily could walk away with 3 or 4 plus goals in this tournament. So you have to give them a right chance. And obviously, Ruben Diaz at the back, like, he's walking away after being the Premier League player of the season.
Top goal scorer?
I'm going to go for a bit of a left one here. I think everyone's kind of mainly talking up Giroud, but I'm going to go for Romelu Lukaku. He was the 2nd top scorer at the last World Cup. And I think if Belgium are going to go far in this tournament, they're going to need him to have a good tournament. Come with the back of an excellent Serie A campaign. Like I say, it's a good tournament for these. I think he might have a little bit of a point to prove kind of as well, because there'll be people out there kind of thinking like, wow, but he didn't cut the mustard in the Premier League, Serie A, not the kind of same standard. So I think he'll want to kind of go and prove a point. So I think Belgium are going to go deep. They need Lukaku to be on fire. So I think he could get the golden boot with somewhere, I think we're in around 5 or 6 goals.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about Lukaku, and then I was thinking, well, how far are England going to go? Because I can see, like, if they do get far, I can see Harry Kane scoring a load of penalties and tap-ins as he always does as well. So
just as he did the last World Cup. I think he got was 2 goals from open play, and one of them was a long range shot from Ruben Loftus-Cheek that hit off him. So how much can you really credit him for that? Like,
one of them hit off his knee and went in, but I could just see something
yeah.
like that happening again. Like, it'd be hilarious. And then the dark horse for the tournament. You kind of touched on it earlier.
I just kind of talked up there. For me, I know a lot of people are saying Italy, but I don't really kind of want to put them in the dark horse category because I think they're a giant in European football, and they always belong in the title for me, especially when they have quality that they have of being main contenders. So I think like a dark horse is someone for me that like you have no kind of, I know maybe some of these countries have won it before, but with very little pedigree, very little history, and that's why I think Turkey or Denmark for me could be. I think Denmark, obviously with 3 group games at home, I'm not sure how it could work out with having games in Copenhagen for knockout stages, and Turkey, like I said, building quite nicely. I think they're in kind of a soft enough group. The only thing is that group is a bit of a weird one because Baku and Rome are the home cities. Now, I'm not 100% sure how the fixtures work, but if ever there was a case where you're going like Baku, Rome, Baku, or vice versa, that might be a bit of a pain and hindrance because that's a long distance. I don't know what UEFA were thinking when they're doing that, because they not have put Baku with Bucharest or Budapest and cut down the travel. That might be something that might hinder Turkey a small bit, but they're the 2 teams for me. I'm going to go as a dark horse.
Yeah, I was thinking about dark horses, and I was kind of like, if Wales can get it together, and if Bale is on form, and if Ramsey comes back from the dead again, like, you know, he's been nowhere this season, and they can churn in a few performances, you never know what they could do as well. So I kind of maybe would pick them possibly to do well.
Yeah, like if they could win that game on Saturday against Switzerland, like I said, that gives them 1 foot in the kind of knockout stage already, and like they definitely won't fear Turkey, and you know they mightn't even fear Italy as well. And I think maybe as well with the whole, I know you could say it's not healthy for them, but maybe the whole gigs thing might kind of motivate them as well. And as you touched on with Bale, we're still seeing glimpses during the season with Spurs of the player that he can be, and he always seems to kind of turn it on for Wales. So I still I can definitely see where you're coming from. I just think that like, you know, that they would still struggle come the knockout stages. But I still think if they were to get to the knockout stage, I still think most of the fans would still regard it as a reasonably good tournament. Like they're a realistic bunch. They realise they're a small country. Before the Euros, hadn't been to a major tournament since the 50s. So they're not going to be kind of demanding just because we got to a semi-final 5 years ago. That's the standard we should get into every year.
Well, listen, it was great to catch up with you, and hopefully you're enjoying the domestic football and enjoy the Euros, and we might catch up then back for the next round of internationals, and we play the mighty Portugal, and we'll see how we get on.
Yeah, we've another triple header again in September. They seem to love these triple header of qualifiers. Yeah, so fingers crossed by the end of that one we'll be talking about a couple of more points, and hopefully Ireland continue to head in the right direction.
And hopefully we'll have a few people at the games as well.
Fingers crossed, yeah. It's looking good. Everything's going, like I said, we're getting bit by bit, we're getting a couple of 100 fans back into League of Ireland matches starting this weekend. So fingers crossed all goes well there with the vaccination program, and you know we'll have a couple of thousand in the Viva by the next time Ireland touch down in September.
Perfect, Gerard. Thanks a million for your time today, man.
No worries, Maris.
Cheers, man.